Keep in mind that our bishop holds the h7 square, king will be forced to h8, that means, and then we're going to play queen f8, and then after rook takes f8, the king is in check, has no moves, and it's just checkmate. Hello, today we are solving blind puzzles, and we're just going to hop straight into it now. We need to go blind tactics, and what we're going to do is we get given a position, and then we get given these moves, and what we have to do is we have to visualize these moves, and then the puzzle comes after you visualize those moves, because you see the position in your head, and then you find the solution to that. So let's see what we can do here. So bishop c4 was played, checking the king. After that they played king h8, king h8, and then they played we played queen d4, which is queen here. The idea there is probably to take this pawn because it's going to come with check, so keep that in mind. Now after queen d4 they played rook g. This rook takes f3. Okay, so remember they've just taken our knight, however our queen could still take this, which means if we was to take this, we would be checking the king here. And remember, we have a bishop on c4, which covers all these light squares, which means the king actually has no escape squares, which now means it's actually a forced mate, because then this rook will be forced to block, and then after we take it, it's just checkmate. So now we go through all that. So if we click here, you'll notice there'll be no suggested moves, because like we should have done, we should have played the moves in our head, which means the queen is on d4, remember? So with the queen on d4, we now click this square, and now you see all the suggested moves. So we take this pawn, and now let's say it plays rook h5. Rook h5 is there. Reasoning being, because remember, king is in check by our queen. We do have a bishop on c4 covering the light squares, and that means the king is in check. It has no moves other than blocking. And then after that, we just take, and you can see now it switches to the final position, and it's just a checkmate, which is very nice. Anyway, now that we've had a nice bit of our tea, so in this position, we played bishop takes f7, which comes with check on the king, and now they played rook takes f7, and then we played knight takes h7 there, and now they have played king takes h7. So, now we think about it. We have removed this pawn as well as this pawn. There is a rook on f7 and a king on h7. Now, can you see that the only pawn that would be left there would be the g6 pawn? And with the g6 pawn, our queen and rook align on that exact square. And so, what we want to do is if we take this, the king will be in check because remember it's on f7. Remember there is no pawn here, so we can't be taken. Okay, let's remove some of those. And now the king's only move would be to go to h8. And then remember, there is a rook on f7, so we would like to checkmate them, and we don't do it on g7 because then our queen gets taken. So what we do there is we just move to g8, and that's just checkmate. So now we take that, and obviously they go king h8, which is just king back. And then we go from g6, because remember we've just taken the g6 pawn, and we move it to h8, and that's just mate. Very nice, mate. Let's go. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. And so, in this position, we played queen g4 check. That is this move, checking the king. They played king h8, which is there. And now we played rook h2. So, after queen g4, king h8, we swung the rook over, trying to maybe align our rook with the king. And then after rook h2, they played a rook to g8. So now what do we want to do here? We've got to remember that we have a queen on g4, a rook on h2, and there's a king on h8. So now, you kind of need to have some good visualization skills as well as good pattern recognition here. So with a queen on g4 and a rook on h2, we also need to keep in mind that we also have a rook on this second rank, right? And so if we could get rid of the pawn that was covering the king on h8, and then we could swing this rook over, that would be mate. And so just keeping those ideas in your head is pretty simple to come up with a solution. So remember, queen g4 was played, queen g4, king h8, and rook h2. And after that, they played rook g8. And now what we want to do here is we just sack the rook. And now the king is forced to take because there's no other moves, and after king takes, we swing the rook over, the pawn is now gone, and it's just checkmate, which is very nice. So remember, we have a queen on g4, we also have a rook on h2, we're just going to take that. King takes h7 was played, which means the king has now taken our rook, and now we just want to swing this rook over, which means it comes all the way over, and that's just a nice staircase mate. Okay, so in this position, knight a5 was played, queen took, and now we played a rook takes d7 check. The only piece that can take here is the rook. However, after the rook takes, we could take with the queen. Reasoning being, the bishop can't take back because it would be pinned. Let's hope you can keep all that in your mind. And so to avoid all that, they played king b6. Now let's try and seal that. So remember, we played knight a5 check, queen took, we played rook d7, and then they played king b6. So there is a queen on a5, a rook on d7, and a king on b6. Now, you need some sort of good pattern recognition to see this. I believe the move is a rook b7 check. Reasoning being, if bishop takes, then we take with the queen, and that should be mate in a couple moves, because after king b6, the king has to come here, I think, and then we mate, I'm assuming. That's kind of hard for me to see. There was a queen on a5, a king on b6, and a rook on d7. Now, I believe the move is just rook b7, so we're going to play that. Now, after bishop takes b7, we play queen takes b7. Now they played king c5, so this one's getting a bit more complicated now. Try to keep this in mind. So, we now have a queen on b7. There is a king on c5. This knight has disappeared because there is now a queen on a5. So, queen on a5, king on c5, a queen on b7. And what do we want to do here? Let's try and keep this all in our heads. There is a queen on a5, a king on c5, a queen on b7, and and we have our bishop on d5. That's what I was forgetting. So now we can just play queen c6, and that should just be checkmate. Nice, thank you. Right, we played e6. They played queen e8, and now we played, that's not f3, queen f3. Okay, and now they played h6. So now we actually have a very nice pawn mate here. What we're going to do is we're going to not sack our queen, just force a thing to happen. So, queen is in check, defended by a pawn and a knight. We don't care about that h7 square because currently the knight holds it. That means queen is forced to take. We're going to then take with our pawn, and that will be checkmate. Now we're going to do all that. Now there's a queen on f3. So now we go here. Now after, remember there's a queen on e8. So now after they play queen takes f7, we take with our pawn here, and that's just checkmate. Anyway, right, in this position, queen d7 was played. After queen d7, they played rook d8, attacking our queen. No, we can't take that because it's defended by the bishop. So be quiet, all of you 600 rated players. So, after queen d7, rook d8, they decided to play... no, we decided to play queen c7, queen c6. So, what do we want to do here? This one is actually very nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to deliver a check, and then we're going to sack the queen. Keep in mind that our bishop holds the h7 square, king will be forced to h8, that means, and then we're going to play queen f8, and then after rook takes f8, the king is in check, has no moves, and it's just checkmate. Sorry for all the arrows, I've just realised what I've done. So, remember we have a queen on d7. Wait. No, where is our queen? Our queen is on c7. It's still the same idea, I'm just losing the position in my head. Right, let's check. King h8 is forced. So now we sack a queen, rook takes f8, now rook takes f8, and that's just checkmate. Very nice. So, yeah, have a great day or night, wherever you are, and goodbye lovely people, and Amos, and see you later.